Finally, we get some war going on here. And for the first time ever, I think I have seen someone go to war over goats and cheesecake. Well, there is a first time for everything. Welcome back to the VikingGnomeAnime, the anime channel with only the most based takes on the internet. Today we are going over episode 11 of Sweet Reincarnation, and as I expected, we got well into the confrontation, conflict, war, whatever you want to call it, between House Huberek and Tutarute? Or whatever the house is supposed to be called. It sounds like a carnival name to me, but whatever. So we do start off here by having the antagonist in this conflict, the Tutarute house leader, sort of explain to us, okay, this is what I've done. The 30,000 army number that was flouted in the last episode was actually just a lie. It was a deception. Actually, we only have like 15,000 troops. But he wanted, for some reason, to get the House of Huberek to get the House of Kadlec to send reinforcements, like ask them for aid to send reinforcements, so that they would then realize that the troop number was actually quite little in comparison to what they actually originally thought, so he would turn down the aid to deal with it himself, to avoid losing face, etc. But that doesn't make the most sense considering what comes next in their planning. But I do assume that they did this, or the House of Tutarute did this, because they are, as we find out later, going to target Lord Squale, the grandson of the Duke of the House Kadlec, etc., to try to kill him off, and then sever the alliance, etc. So I assume from that standpoint, they wanted Huberek to ask for reinforcements based on this false troop number, so that Kadlec would send his grandson first with his new fiancée, Petra, back to the Margrave house so he can sort of help with the defense before the main army or reinforcements come from House Kadlec, right? And then that hinging everything, his plan on that point, right? As he might not be there if it was not for us being asked for reinforcements from Huberek. Because, right, to then go further into what we find out later is that, okay, Tutarute, the lord there, he is not planning to directly attack with this, 10,000 plus strong army. He wants to ambush and kill Lord Squale because by doing that, he deducts, and quite correctly I assume, that if he's able to kill Lord Squale, the grandson of the Duke, then of course the Duke will be furious and he will pull out from any alliance that he currently has between him and Lord Huberek. And it will, of course, also shatter the engagement between his daughter and his grandson, because, of course, he will be dead. And that will further isolate him as well as a humiliating defeat for the Huberek family, which will allow, either now or I suppose sometime later, for Tutarute to launch an all-out attack to finish off his long-time rival. You know, all these things make sense, and all these things are reasonably competent and intelligent, right? Like, this is a plan that a rival lord in some region might actually come up with. It's not brain dead. And to me, it is so refreshing to have an antagonist, even a minor one, be actually competent. So often, and now I am referring to Western media, largely, the antagonists are so utterly brain dead, you wonder how the hell do they get to the positions they are in. But again, here in anime, thank God, the antagonists are at least competent. Now, naturally, the plan will fail, I assume, because that's how it has to go. But still, a decent plan. Decent plan. Thumbs up for the idea. When we go a bit back again, though, so the second plot point in this episode is Pastry and his goats. We have a small scene where Licorice basically tells Pastry, why do people have to go to war? It would be so much better if everyone would just be absorbed by making sweets and eating sweets and smiling, and there would be no need for war. I mean, okay, sweetheart, that's a nice thought there, but war would still happen, no matter how many sweets people get, okay? But, nice thought. But after which point, you do find out that apparently the goats that Pastry ordered last episode have been, not stolen per se, but sort of stolen, swiped away from him by a local baron that sort of bought them out of force, or forced the seller to buy them, even though they had promised to sell them to Pastry. But anyways, this enrages Pastry, and he wants his goats back. But then his father comes in and he explains to him different reasons why he can't just go and take the goats back or demand the goats back. And then we go to get into the war and the conflict, and it's like, okay, so the Baron sort of forced this guy to sell him the goats because they need food and provisions in wartime, because it can be difficult to get provisioning from, due to war, I guess. And since Mortland is not a high-standing noble house, I can't really lodge an official complaint about this behavior, and apparently this Baron also has a history of sort of belittling and bullying, let's say, up-and-coming noble houses. But this all ends with Pastry and his father going to war to aid on Lord Huberek's side, because, largely, Pastry at least, he wants his goats back, and he reasons with himself and others that, okay, if we enter the war, we will be an aiding party to the war, meaning we will have priority over provisioning and resources in wartime. So it's like, well, I mean, that's not a horribly unreasonable conclusion or theory, but that is the first time I think I've ever seen someone go to war over goats and making cheesecake. But I guess Licorice said she wanted cheesecake, so cheesecake she shall get. Anyway, the two of them, or the father, Pastry, and one attendant, Glucose, whatever it's called, I forget, and some infantrymen rush off to help Lord Huberek. And of course, at the end of the episode, they find out basically what the Lord is planning, and they rush out to help him, and we see them sort of helping him and rescuing him at the end of the episode. But one question I did have, though, is, okay, so in this whole theory here that resources and things can get scarce and difficult to get, especially food and such, during wartime, I am a bit curious as to how exactly that works. I mean, sure, even in our own world, if a war breaks out on a continent or an area or a region, that can have consequences for, let's say, specifically food exports, for example. If a large country or area that exported a lot of food suddenly gets invaded, and they are unable to export food anymore. Hint, hint at real-world events. Now, of course, this would put pressure on neighboring and nearby regions, like kingdoms, whatever else, or fiefdoms, whatnot, to hoard food and resources before that happens, so they are safe, and their peoples are safe in case of any such problem. But we have got no information why the Huberek region being invaded and potentially toppled and destroyed, what specific effects that would have on the neighboring kingdoms. Like, is the Huberek region a big exporter of food? Are they a big exporter of important resources? Like, what will their invasion and potential destruction mean for the local and regional areas? We have no information about that, so it is quite difficult to judge how, why, or what would happen in that case. So, I assume the Baron, again, just sort of gobbled up all the goats for provisioning and food as a precaution, not necessarily because of any specific reason. But anyway, I guess it makes sense. It is logical enough, and it is an important plot point for Pastry this episode. So fine, I'll let it go. I would have just liked to get more specific information on why things are as they are in this case. And that basically ends the episode, with, of course, Pastry and his father, Casserole, saving Lord Squale from the ambush that almost succeeded. A final thing I noted, though, at the end of the episode was that one commentary from one soldier stated that, like, when, Lord Squale and his men, etc., were fighting off the ambush, or trying to anyway, and he gave some orders, then one of these nameless enemy soldiers stated, that must be the enemy leader, let's target him. It's like, yes. I mean, that comment doesn't make the most sense to me, because Lord Tutute's plan was clearly, principally, mainly, to kill off Lord Squale. I would assume that every single unit, especially ones that were specifically told to ambush and set up ambushes and stuff to take out Lord Squale, mainly, would be informed of, this is your target. The most important target is Lord Squale, right? Nothing else matters, just him. And given them a detailed description of how he looks and everything else to specifically target him. But with this comment, what that signifies to me is that these soldiers were not informed of how Lord Squale looked and didn't know, or they weren't specifically told to only target Lord Squale as much as possible, just ambush people. That seems a bit odd. It might just be a weird translation, or otherwise not super specific or that important from the standpoint of the producers that they thought this line was fine. But to me, the line signifies a lot of weird questions. Anyway, it's a very small, minor, I would say mistake or question, but something that they should be more attentive to in the future. So to make the whole narrative even more cohesive and dialed in, so to speak. Anyway though, as a whole, I think the episode was enjoyable. The whole war aspect and such, I think, is fine. I would have liked more strategy. We did get like some very minor strategy stuff going on in the middle of the episode when Lord Casserole sort of explained the positionings and defense, offense, etc. But still fairly light on detail and strategy and such. So next episode, I hope we will get a good conclusion, satisfactory conclusion to the season as well as the conflict here. And then we might even look forward to season 2 at some point, hopefully, of this sweet adventure. That being said, what did you think of the episode? Hate it, love it, whatever else, leave those comments down below. Also, please do like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff to support this new channel. I deeply appreciate every single ounce of support. And with that being said, I will see you next time, so have a good day and watch more anime. Goodbye.